The call came in while I was sitting on my back patio in Portland last spring, watching my neighbor try to drag a dead grill across his lawn with one wheel missing. Saturday afternoon, cold beer sweating on the table beside me. My phone buzzed once against the wood, and I looked down expecting work. Hannah, my older sister. I hadn't seen her name on my screen in almost 2 years. The phone rang once, then twice. I let it keep going. By the sixth ring, I was still staring at it, thinking about the last 6 years she spent making sure I wasn't in family photos, wasn't at reunions, wasn't included in the group text that somehow everybody else knew about except me. I picked up on the seventh ring. She was crying before I even said hello. Ethan, I need help. I leaned back in the chair and looked out across the yard. The wedding's falling apart, and I don't know who else to call. I kept the phone against my ear and listened to her breathing for a second before I said anything. Okay, tell me what's wrong. She talked for 19 minutes straight. Venue problems. Vendors backing out. Her fiancé barely speaking to her. Her maid of honor threatening to quit after some fight over money. Half-finished seating charts. Deposits gone. Family already flying in from 3 states. I listened without interrupting. I didn't ask why she was calling me after 6 years of making sure I heard about family reunions from Facebook pictures 3 days later. I didn't ask about the Christmas she told our cousins I was in a weird place, when the truth was she never invited me. I didn't ask why suddenly I was family enough to answer the phone. When she finally stopped talking, there was this little silence on the line, like she was waiting for me to save her. I rubbed my thumb against the edge of the beer bottle and watched the sunlight move across the fence. I'll think about it, I said. I'll call you tomorrow. Ethan, I said I'll call tomorrow. I hung up before she answered. Then I sat there on the patio until the sun disappeared behind the houses across the street. The beer got warm beside me. My phone stayed face down on the table. I didn't move once, and I still didn't know what I was going to tell her in the morning. That Saturday evening, I stood at my kitchen counter making dinner for one, slicing an onion. The call was still running through my head on a loop. Hannah's wedding planner had quit. The venue had double-booked the reception hall. Her fiancé's parents were threatening to pull their funding over some guest list dispute. And her maid of honor, our cousin Lauren, had stepped back 2 weeks ago for reasons Hannah did not explain. I kept slicing and thought about the fact that my sister had not called me because we had reconciled. She had called me because she had run out of other people to call. The onion made my eyes water. I did not pretend that was why. After dinner, I opened my laptop and pulled up my calendar. The wedding was the second weekend of June. It was early April. I had a project deadline at work that month. I had a long-planned weekend in Bend with 2 college friends, and I had nothing else. I looked at those empty squares around the wedding dates and just sat there. I did not make a decision. I closed the laptop and walked away from the counter. Then I called my mother. She picked up on the first ring. "Did she call you?" she asked. I said yes. My mother went quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Ethan, I didn't ask her to. I want you to know that. She came to me yesterday and said she was going to call you. I told her you didn't owe her anything." I sat down at the kitchen table. She kept going. "Honey, I love your sister, but I have watched her cut you out of this family for 6 years. I have not been silent about it. I have been silent to you about it because I didn't want to make it bigger than it already was. But I want you to know, I saw it. I always saw it." I stayed quiet for a long pause. Then I said, "Thanks, Mom. I needed to know that." She said, "Whatever you decide, I'll back you. And whatever it costs you, I'll know what it cost." I thanked her again and hung up. I sat at the table with the phone in my hand and looked at the wall. Sunday morning, I went for a long run. 6 miles out along the Springwater Corridor Trail, the pavement still wet from the night before. The miles pulled the call out of my head and the reunion photos in. 6 summers ago at the lake house in Idaho my uncle owns, Hannah had organized the whole thing. The family group chat had been active for weeks. Dates, potluck assignments, who was bringing the boat. I finally asked her what weekend it was. She said, "Oh, it's small this year, just immediate family stuff." I believed her because she was my sister, and I did not know yet that believing her would become something I stopped doing. 2 months later, our cousin Lauren posted a photo from the dock on a Tuesday afternoon. I was sitting at my desk at work when I scrolled past it. 22 people standing there. Every cousin I had. Uncles. Aunts. My parents. Hannah at the center of the frame with a glass of wine in her hand. I stared at the photo for maybe a full minute. I did not ask her about it. I did not comment on the post. I just put my phone face down on my desk and pretended I had not seen it. The second reunion was Thanksgiving the following year. Hannah hosted at her house in Seattle. I assumed I would be invited because it was Thanksgiving and she was my sister, and that is what families do. The week before she texted me, "Hey, just so you know, we're keeping it really small this year. Mom and Dad are coming up. I don't think it'll be your scene." I read that message about 6 times. I don't think it'll be your scene. I spent Thanksgiving alone at my apartment eating pad thai from a cardboard takeout box. I watched a movie I do not remember. I went to bed at 9. My mother called me from Hannah's bathroom at 10:30 crying. She whispered because she did not want anyone to hear her. She said, "I didn't know she meant just you. I thought she meant a small group." She told me you could not get the time off work. I told my mother it was fine. We both knew it was not fine. She stayed on the phone with me for 20 minutes, sitting on the edge of Hannah's bathtub, while everyone else ate pie in the other room. I thought about the wedding shower last fall that I heard about from a cousin who assumed I had been invited. The text came in at 9 on a Saturday morning. "Hey, are you coming? We're about to start games." I had to write back and say I did not know there was a shower. Awkward silence. Then a changed subject. I thought about the Christmas card photo Hannah posted on Instagram. 12 cousins, 4 aunts, 2 uncles, my mother, my father, all of them at her engagement party. Smiling, holding drinks, standing in front of a rented photo backdrop. I had not been told there was an engagement party. I found out my sister was engaged from my mother 3 weeks after the ring went on her finger. My mother said, "I thought she told you." "I am so sorry, honey." I stopped running about halfway through mile 4. I stood on the side of the trail with my hands on my knees and tried to catch my breath. I remembered the only time I ever asked her directly. 2 years ago on a phone call. I said, "Hannah, why aren't I being included in things?" And she said, "Ethan, this isn't about you. Stop making everything about you." Just like that. No explanation. No apology. Just dismissal. I had hung up and not called her again. She had not called me either. Until yesterday. I stood there on the trail, breathing hard, and I tried to understand why I was even thinking about saying yes to a woman who had told me to my own voice that I was the problem for wanting to be invited to my own family. Sunday afternoon, I called Hannah back. She picked up on the first ring, calmer than yesterday. "Thank you for calling me back," she said. "I didn't think you would." I told her I almost didn't. She said, "I know. I deserve that." I held the phone and waited for the part where she explained why she had been excluding me for 6 years. The explanation did not come. She just waited for me to say yes. I said I would help, but I wanted to be clear about a few things first. She said okay. I told her I was not coming back into the family because of this wedding. I was doing this as a project. I would help with the venue, the planner, and the logistics. I would be at the rehearsal and the wedding. I was not coming to any pre-wedding family events. Not a shower. Not a brunch. I was not pretending the last 6 years did not happen. Was she clear? She went quiet for a long beat. Then she said, "Ethan, please don't make this harder than it has to be." I said I was making this exactly as hard as it had to be. Was she clear? She said yes. Then she said, "I just want to say, I know I haven't been a good sister. I know there are things we'll need to talk about. But not right now, okay? I just need to get through this wedding. Can we save it for after?" I waited a second. I told her I was not asking to talk about anything right now. I was telling her what I was willing to do. There was a difference. After the wedding was its own conversation. The rest of Sunday, I spent on my laptop. I pulled up a project management template I use at work and built a wedding logistics tracker. Venue, vendors, contracts, timelines, payments, contingencies. By 11 at night, I had a clean dashboard. I emailed it to Hannah. The subject line was Wedding, Operational Plan. Inside, the email was 6 sentences. "No love, your brother." No emoji. Just instructions on how to fill in the rest of the cells. She replied within 10 minutes. 2 words. Thank you. Nothing else. 3 weeks, and I had rebuilt the entire wedding from the operational layer up. I negotiated the venue down to a rebooked weekend at half the original deposit. I secured a replacement coordinator through a colleague's wife. I renegotiated the guest list dispute by drafting a numerical compromise both sets of parents accepted in writing. 42 hours I'd spent on this in 3 weeks. I billed Hannah for none of it. I did not go to bed with my college friends. I sent them a short text. Family thing. Rain check. They did not push. They know me. 5 weeks and my mother called. She said, Ethan, Hannah was at our house yesterday. She was telling everyone about how stressful the wedding has been and how lucky she is to have such supportive family. She did not mention you. I want you to know that she did not mention you. I said, okay, Mom. She said, I'm telling you because I think you should know what she's doing. I said I figured she would. My mother said, she is taking credit for your work. I told her I knew. She asked if I was okay with that. I said I had not decided yet. 6 weeks and Hannah called me with a new request. She wanted me to give a toast at the rehearsal dinner. It would mean so much to me, she said. To Mom and Dad. To everyone. I did not answer for a moment. I told her I said I was not coming to pre-wedding events. The rehearsal dinner was a pre-wedding event. She said, Ethan, please. It's just dinner. The rehearsal itself is the same night. You're already going to be there. Then she added, they're going to be standing there anyway. People are going to want to hear from you. Mom and Dad are going to want to hear from you. You're being kind of weird about this. I asked her how. She said, weird like you're treating this like a contract negotiation instead of a family wedding. I told her she called me about a venue contract. I was doing what she asked me to do. She said, Ethan, please. I said I would think about it. She said thank you and hung up. I sat at my desk and understood what was happening. The terms I set were being slowly renegotiated by the woman who promised to honor them. She had not changed at all. She was using the wedding the same way she used the 6 years. Managing the optics, taking the credit, expecting me to fill the gaps without acknowledgement. I had 6 weeks of work invested. I could not unhelp, but I could no longer pretend I was being helped back. The Thursday before the wedding, I drove from Portland to the venue in Hood River. I booked a small Airbnb for myself instead of staying at the family rental. My mother had asked me 3 times to stay at the rental. I said no 3 times. I arrived at 8, unpacked, hung my suit, and sat on the small balcony with a beer. I thought about the toast Hannah asked me to give. I had not written it. I had not even decided if I would do it. At 9:30, my mother knocked on the door. She had driven over from the family rental with a bottle of wine and 2 glasses. She came in and sat on the couch. She said, I'm not going to tell you what to do tomorrow. I'm going to tell you something I should have told you 10 years ago. When your sister was 18 and you were 14, I caught her telling her friends she was an only child. I confronted her. She cried. She apologized. I let it go. I should not have let it go. I have been letting it go for 20 years. I looked at my mother. She was not crying. She was angry in a way I had rarely seen her. She stayed for an hour. We drank 1 glass each. She told me 3 more stories I had never heard. Small moments across the years where Hannah had erased me in conversations with her friends, with her in-laws, with her coworkers. My mother had heard them all and stayed quiet, hoping things would heal on their own. She said, Ethan, I'm telling you because tomorrow you are going to stand up at that rehearsal as a man who has saved her wedding, and she's going to introduce you as her brother who helped a little if she introduces you at all. I don't want you to walk in there without knowing what I know. She put her glass down and looked at me. Whatever you do tomorrow, Ethan, you do it as the man who put 8 weeks into this, not as the boy she has been pretending didn't exist. Promise me that. I told her I would do it as me. That was what I could promise. She left at 10:45. I sat on the balcony for another hour. My beer was warm. The bottle of wine sat half full on the table. I still had not decided who I was going to be when I walked into that rehearsal. Friday morning at 9, I was at the venue. The replacement coordinator I hired was already there. The vendors were arriving. I spent 3 hours doing what I came to do, checking deliveries, walking the timeline with the coordinator, confirming the run of show with the officiant. I was professional and precise. I did not text Hannah. I did not look for her. By noon, the venue was in good shape. I drove back to my Airbnb and sat at the small kitchen table. I opened my laptop and wrote one page. The page was not a toast. It was a letter, short and clean, addressed to Hannah. 3 paragraphs. What I came here to do, what I had done, what I was leaving behind for her, and what I was not going to do. The 3rd paragraph was the shortest. It said I would be at the rehearsal at 5, would stand in my place during the run-through, and would then leave. I would not attend the rehearsal dinner. I would not give a toast. I would be at the wedding the next day in my role as a guest. After Sunday, I would not be available for follow-up. I printed the letter, folded it once, and put it in the inside pocket of my jacket. At noon, I took a call from the coordinator. She said, "Ethan, I just want to say, I've worked 30 weddings. The bride hasn't asked about you in 2 days. Not once. I thought you should know." I thanked her. I told her I appreciated her telling me. She said, "Whatever happens tonight, the wedding will run." I've got it from here. I told her I knew. That was why I hired her. At 4:45, I drove back to the venue. The light was gold. The river was moving slow. I parked and stood by my car for a moment. I thought about my mother on the couch the night before. I thought about 6 years of group photos I was not in. I thought about the 8 weeks of my life I just spent saving the wedding of a woman who never told her in-laws I existed. I walked toward the rehearsal with a letter in my pocket and a calm I did not have to manufacture. The rehearsal started at 5:15. Hannah was in a white sundress. Her fiancé, Daniel, stood at the altar. The wedding party, 8 people, none of whom I knew, was arrayed around them. I was standing in the 2nd row, where the coordinator placed me for the run-through. Hannah did not look at me. The officiant walked them through the ceremony. It took 40 minutes. At the end, Hannah clapped her hands and said to the group, "Okay, everyone, dinner at the inn at 7. See you there." People started moving toward their cars. I did not move. I waited until the wedding party had dispersed. Then I walked up to Hannah. She was talking to Daniel and Daniel's mother. She saw me coming and said brightly, "Oh, this is my brother Ethan. He flew in for the weekend." Daniel's mother smiled politely. I did not correct her. I said, "Hannah, can I have a moment?" She said, "Sure, what's up?" She did not move away from Daniel and his mother. I pulled the letter out of my jacket and handed it to her. I said, "I wrote this for you. I'd like you to read it tonight, not now." She held the letter and looked at it. Then she looked back up at me. She laughed a little. "Ethan, what is this? Are you being dramatic?" Daniel's mother took a step back. Daniel went still. I said evenly, "I'm being clear. The wedding is in good hands. The coordinator has the run of show. The vendors are paid through Sunday. I won't be at dinner tonight. I'll be at the wedding tomorrow as a guest. Read the letter when you have a quiet moment." I nodded to Daniel and to his mother and turned to walk toward my car. Behind me, I heard Hannah say, "Ethan, wait. Are you really doing this right now? In front of Daniel's family?" I kept walking. I said I was not doing anything in front of anyone. I was leaving so she could have her dinner. She called out, "This is so unlike you." I stopped walking for just a second. I turned my head and told her she didn't know what was like me. She decided what was like me 6 years ago and stopped looking. Read the letter. I kept walking to my car. I did not look back. Behind me, I heard her say, with another small laugh, "I have no idea what that's about." I opened my car door and sat inside. The river was still moving slow. The light was almost gone. Saturday morning at 10:14, I got a text from Hannah. 6 paragraphs long. I read it once. It was not an apology. It was a defense. She explained that she had been going through her own stuff for years. She explained that she did not realize I had been hurt. She explained that she assumed I did not want to come to things because I was always so busy with work. She closed by saying she hoped I would still come to the wedding and that we could talk about all of this when things calmed down. I did not respond. I showered, put on my suit, and went to the wedding. I sat in the third row on the family side. My mother sat beside me. My father sat beside her. The ceremony was beautiful. The reception was beautiful. The coordinator I hired ran everything flawlessly. Hannah did not toast me. She did not mention me. She thanked everyone who helped make this day possible without specifying anyone. I ate dinner. I danced once with my mother. I left at 9:30 before the cake was cut. I did not say goodbye to Hannah. My mother walked me to my car. She squeezed my arm and said, "You did the right thing. All of it." Then she said, "Ethan, your father wanted me to tell you he saw what you did. The walking out, the letter, all of it. He did not know how to say it to you himself. He wanted you to know he saw it." I told her to tell him thanks. She said she would. "Drive safe, honey." I drove back to Portland that night, getting in at 1:30 in the morning. I slept until 11. 3 days later, Hannah sent me a long email. It was angrier than the text. She said I ruined the most important weekend of her life by making it about myself. She said our cousins had been asking what was wrong. She said she did not know what I wanted from her. I read the email twice. I did not respond. A week later, she sent a follow-up. "Are you really not going to respond?" I did not respond to that either. After the second week, the messages stopped. 5 months later, early October, I was on my patio in Portland on a Saturday afternoon. The light was the same gold it had been at the venue in June. The same angle, the same warmth, but everything else had shifted. I had a coffee in my hands, and my mother was sitting in the other chair. She had driven down from Seattle for the weekend alone. She had done this twice since the wedding. Once in July, just to check on me. Once in August, because she said she wanted to see a movie and the theater near me had better seats. I had not seen Hannah since June. I had not heard from her since the second email in late June, the angry one where she said I ruined everything. I did not bring her up. Neither did my mother. That was how we had learned to be together again. Not pretending, just not leading with the wound. We sat in silence for a while, the kind of silence that does not need to be filled. A neighbor was raking leaves 3 houses down. The sound carried across the yards. Then my mother put her coffee down and said, "I told your sister I would not be hosting Christmas at her house this year. I told her I would be hosting it at mine. I told her you would be invited, and I expected her to come if she wanted to come." I looked at my mother and told her she did not have to do that. She shook her head. "I have done a lot of not having to, Ethan. I have spent 20 years not having to step in, not having to say anything, not having to choose a side because I thought there would always be more time. I am done with not having to." I nodded and did not say anything else. The light started to fade across the fence, and the neighbors stopped raking and went inside. My mother looked at the sky and said, "Honey, I'm going to head in. It's been a long drive." I said I would make us dinner. She squeezed my hand once on her way past me. At the door, she stopped and turned around. She stood there with her hand on the frame and said, "Ethan, I want to say one thing before we go inside. I lost a daughter for a while when she stopped talking to you. I just did not know it at the time. I thought she was just busy. I thought she was just stressed. I thought a lot of things that let me off the hook. I do not think those things anymore." I told her she had not lost anything. She was just seeing what was always there. She stood there for another second and then said, "Maybe. Either way, I am here. That is what I came to say." She turned and walked into the kitchen. I stayed on the patio for another minute. My coffee was cold. The light was almost gone. The phone in my pocket did not buzz. I did not expect it to. I had stopped expecting things from my sister somewhere around the 3rd week of silence after the wedding. I stood up and followed my mother inside. I closed the door behind me, and the patio went dark. I am over at where silence ends. If you have ever been the one who showed up after being cut out, what did you get in return?